Alrighty, so today we're going to do the season preview of FC Cincinnati, and straight away, I might have made a mistake in terms of writing the text for this season preview for FC Cincinnati in orange. I probably should have gone with their other primary color, which is blue, which you can read it more perfectly, but, I decided to go with orange originally because I want to match the same color as the secondary jersey that FC Cincinnati released and the one that I'm wearing right now. But again, looking at the recording right now, it seems like it's kind of hard or hard for you guys to read, especially at this part. It's going to be really hard to kind of read the text, so apologies to that in advance. And also, at the time of this recording, I'm actually recording this right after the AFC Championship game is over between the Bengals and the Chiefs, and that, this couldn't come at a worse time in terms of talking about a Cincinnati team when their football team just got eliminated and lost that AFC Championship game, so they will not make it back to the Super Bowl. And that I will say that if you are a Cincinnati fan watching this, I mean, as much as I know you're still going through the pain of seeing your football team lose in the AFC Championship, the good news is that at least your soccer team definitely had some hope and had some optimism that they could have a decent season. And that, I think, is something that I don't think I've ever said about FC Cincinnati coming into the season, because one thing we know about this team is that they have been the laughingstock of MLS for the first 3 years coming into MLS, but something happened in the fourth year where they completely changed their regime, got a new GM, and also got a new head coach. And that even though, there was that optimism that, this new change will definitely help, especially getting some names from the Philadelphia Union and the team that is known to have a lot of success. We didn't think that it was going to be happening immediately from the first season. I mean, I don't think any FC Cincinnati fan would realize that they would actually be finishing the season with a 12-13-9 record and finish with 49 points and make it all the way to the 5th spot in the Eastern Conference, and not to mention also winning a playoff game in the progress. I mean, they absolutely smashed that expectation and then some. And to also just show you how historic last season was for FC Cincinnati, when you look at the points total that they had in 2021, they finished with a 4-8-22 record and finished with just 20 points, which is one of the lowest amount of points that a team has ever got in a single season, and obviously did not make it to the playoffs and finish in the wooden spoon spot in 14th place. The previous year also didn't get any better. In the COVID shortened year, it was a 4-4-15 record and finished with 16 points. And mind you, I think 2 of those wins that they had during that season was in the MLS's back tournament. So the fact that they only won 2 more times after the MLS's back tournament is over, just to shows you how bad things, of course, have got for this team. And even in their expansion season, as much as I think maybe that might be the only time where there's hope that at least they could be respectable in the league, no. They turns out to be probably the worst expansion team we have ever seen since Chiva USA, with a 6-6-22 record and finished with 24 points. And that, again, it's kind of mind-boggling, the fact that if you combine both 2021 and 2020 season in terms of the points total, it would be still less than the amounts that they got in 2022. And I know 2020 was also a shortened year because of the COVID pandemic, but even if you add the 2021 and 2019 season when this team played a full season, that's still not as much, or that's still less than the amount that they got in 2022. And again, what I'm trying to say is that 2022 is just a season that, again, just nobody saw this one coming in a good way, and that, FC Cincinnati fans that dream that this team can be relevant, I don't think even in their wildest kind of dream that they would think that they would achieve this overhaul in the first season under this new regime to make it to the playoffs and also winning a playoff game. Now, that being said, in terms of some of the transfer that they've done, again, they didn't do a lot in terms of the transfer this offseason, and in some way they didn't really need to, because when you look at the roster that they had, I could say that is definitely one of the best roster in the Eastern Conference, and a team that can definitely go toe to toe again, some of the best team in the Eastern Conference. But the biggest signings that they did make this offseason is getting Marco Angulo this offseason. And I believe he's a guy that I think he played for the Ecuadorian national team and was on that World Cup roster. But he is a guy that is going to add more quality in terms of that defensive midfield spot and that number 6 spot. And I would just want to say straight down, I think FC Cincinnati might have had the best deep line number 6 in the league heading into this upcoming season, because we know on one end Wobodo, who was on a DP deal last season, he definitely lived up to its expectation, and now you add in another guy like Marco Angulo in terms of that spot. All of a sudden, I mean, that defensive midfield spot and though that area is going to be absolute locked down. I mean, it's almost like FC Cincinnati might have just got 2 Diego Chara on this team, and that's just absolutely incredible. Or I would like to say in another comparison, it's like they got Diego Chara and Jose Martinez on the same team too. Now, the other signings that they have that are not really major signing, they got Isaiah Foster from Colorado Springs Switchback, and I'm assuming he's probably going to be more used as a depth piece. They got Hunter Morris and Joey Akarenuhu from the Super Draft. Again, I'm trying to basically include players that they added as the players that they, of course, got in the draft, because after all, these are the players that they, of course, selected and are now part of the roster. Now, in terms of players that is no longer with this team, now they did lose a lot of depth pieces, and they also lost a couple of key names during this offseason too. One of those key names, well, it's not really a key name, but you know, if you're a guy that follow EDM closely, you probably know this name by heart, and that of course is Calvin Harris. And by the way, he actually is going to be going to the Colorado Rapids, so it's good the fact that he is still staying in MLS, and that you know, it does still give me a chance whenever if I mention his name, I always get to mention that he's I'm talking about the soccer player and not the Scottish DJ, which, by the way, fun fact for you, the Scottish DJ Calvin Harris, his real name isn't actually Calvin Harris. I think it's like something Anthony or something like that, but that's just his stage name. So that makes it even more mind-boggling, the fact that we actually have a player that is actually, his name is Calvin Harris. But again, you know, it's good to sometimes see some of these names that may be named after a famous artist and stuff like that. And there was time when he was playing some minutes during the bad season for FC Cincinnati. In fact, I think he assisted one of the goals that I immediately cannot resist myself by saying, yeah, Calvin Harris, of course, assisted that goal, but I'm not talking about the Scottish DJ, if you know what I mean. Now, the other key player that they lost is Ronald Turito, and that, you know, he of course is a guy that, again, it just kind of didn't work out for him to a point where I think it didn't really work out for him is because he's been suffering so many injuries, and now it seems like he is moving on of all places to the Ukraine Premier League. I mean, I already mentioned that's kind of the last place I would think you want to go to in terms of finding a change of scenery, especially from the ongoing conflict that's going on between Russia and Ukraine. But you know, certainly, as I also mentioned before, I'll definitely wish him the best. And again, you know, during his time with NYCFC, he was definitely at the peak of his time in MLS. And again, just the injuries issue that he had with FC Cincinnati just really was not able to, or at least for FC Cincinnati case, it just didn't really kind of get a guy that was at the similar quality as during his days with NYCFC. And then some other players that are no longer this team, we got Ben Mines and John Nelson, who John Nelson, of course, was picked up by St. Louis City SC in the expansion draft. So if the league is going to have a 30th team, which I'm assuming it's going to be the case, and we're going to have another expansion draft, the good news for Cincinnati is that they're not going to be part of it, because since there was already a player picked in this expansion draft, they basically get exempt heading into the next expansion draft You also got Tyler Blackett and Alan Cruz in it. I mean, remember Alan Cruz and how people were saying that he maybe was the only legitimate DP that was good during the old regime, and that it turns out that of course was not the case. Again, there's a reason why FC Cincinnati was so bad for the first three seasons. They not only didn't really construct a really good team, but also pretty much all of their DP that they signed really sucked. And then you got Beckham Sunderland also departed from this team. I think he's one of the homegrown for FC Cincinnati, but I already talked about how Calvin Harris is definitely an interesting name. How about Beckham Sunderland? I mean, that is definitely one of the best name I can think of in MLS. Not only the fact that you basically are your first name is literally the last name of the current owner of Inter Miami, but also your last name is named after a city and also a club in England. I mean, that is something that it is very cool to see, but unfortunately, I don't know if he is going to be joining another MLS team, so unfortunately, I won't get the chance to mention his name too much. They also lost Nick Markizem, and also Zico Bailey. I also just realized I accidentally wrote Nick Marquinhos' name twice there. And then they also will not bring back Jeff Cameron for this upcoming season too. So yeah, again, the defense, that is something that, again, then we already knew that this was going to be a weakness with this team, which, speaking of which, why not jump into my next part of the season preview, talk about the strength and weakness. And before I talk about the strength, obviously the weakness is still with this back line. Again, I think when you look at this back line, there's still a lot of question. I mean, when Matt Miazga came to this FC Cincinnati team, at least it kind of solidified the back line a little bit, but still, there is still big question mark in this back line. Especially, I think now the biggest question mark about this back line is the fact that they're kind of short in terms of the center back position. I mean, I'm assuming if Pat Nolan decided to continue to play free at the back, which at times he likes to do, I would think that they probably might need to add another center back or even a sixth center back in that roster. Because if you just have four center back in your roster and you're playing free at the back, yeah, that's definitely not a recipe in terms of that being successful. And also, if they decided to kind of revert into a back four system, then all of a sudden, if you decide to put maybe guys like Barrial and Alvis Pau in the fullback position, yeah, that might not be a great spot too, because there's a reason why both of those players are in the fullback position for FC, or the left wing back and right wing back position respectively, because both of those guys are not really guys that is known for their defensive capability. They're more known for bombing forward, as what we've seen with a lot of wingbacks nowadays. So yeah, this is where it could definitely create an issue for Pat Nolan next season, that this team, not only the back line, it's still going to be a big question, because last season their back line wasn't actually, I mean, it got better, but it still wasn't at a point where I can say that you can say that this team can get this Cincinnati team to be able to go deep into the playoffs. So yeah, that's one area that they're definitely going to have to address. But obviously, the strength of this team, it's got to be at the attack and the roll form. I mean, as I mentioned before, this team has probably one of the scariest front four in the league, when you have the likes of Brenner, Lucho Acosta, Brett Vasquez, and so on. I mean, that is a very lethal front three I'm talking about, and a front three that it's no surprise last season they hit the 60+ goal mark, because that front three was hitting on all cylinders last season, and expect it could be the same case heading for this upcoming season. Now, the three big question for this Cincinnati team: are they going to use those cap space to add or upgrade the back line? So again, going back to my talk about the back line, and now I think Chris Albright is going to definitely utilize that. And especially, as much as they did lose some depth pieces, the good news is that most of the depth pieces that they lost weren't really that good, and they were able to clear out a lot of that cap space, and now they can basically utilize that by maybe signing another defender, or even upgrade in that position, which again, that's something that they might also think about. Consider there are some players on that back line that I don't think is considered to be elite and considered to be a good enough to trying to carry this team pretty far into the playoffs. And then will they cash in terms of their main assets? So guys like Brandon Vasquez and Brenner are probably the hottest asset that they can sell off for a big amount of money. But are they going to do it in the summer transfer window or doing it next offseason? And if so, how much they of course will get for them? I'm assuming it's going to be a lot. I mean, when Cincinnati decided to turn down the $7 million transfer fee that Chivas want for Brendan Vasquez, you know that it's probably going to be a big amount. So we'll see how big that amount is going to be. Are we going to be seeing something that is what Montreal did when they sold off pretty much all of their high value asset to teams in Europe and they got a big boatload of money? Or are we also going to see the same case with the Chicago Fire that also sold off a big amount of asset and got a lot of money out of that too? And if they do decide to sell those pieces during the summer transfer window, I mean, I'm assuming they're probably going to have to find a replacement straight away. And especially when you do it in the summer. I mean, the summer is a good time to do it because that's where a lot of European teams are usually decided to spend that big amount of money to get those players compared to doing the winter transfer window. But then the risk, of course, when you decide to sell in the summer is that you do lose those key pieces in case if you're having a good season and maybe make a playoff run. And maybe this is also the reason why we don't usually see a lot of big name players depart in the summer, or at least if they are departing in the summer, they're pretty much signing on a pre-contract with another team because they want to finish the rest of the season and want, or at least the club that is selling those star players want them to finish the rest of the season because they want to be part of a playoff run before they are moving on to another team. So yeah, I'm assuming replacement is going to be a must needed if they do decide to sell in the summer. And then the bonus question for this FC Cincinnati team is, will Pat Nolan win Coach of the Year if he guides the Cincinnati team deep in the playoffs? And the answer to that is absolutely yes. Again, I was kind of befuddled the fact that last year Pat Nolan wasn't even considered to be in the top 3 for the Coach of the Year award. I mean, I know that there were other head coaches that did some incredible thing. I mean, Wilfried Nancy is a great example of guiding that Montreal team all the way to second in the Eastern Conference and probably should have won that award. I mean, this is no offense to Jim Kern. I know he's been doing very well with the Union team and has really coached this team to be an absolute force in the Eastern Conference for the past couple of seasons. But what Wilfried Nancy did last season was just nothing short of miracle to guide a team that was just, we knew that it was a dark horse team, but to guide them to do so well and get themselves the second in the standings, that is definitely something that you could say deserve Coach of the Year kind of material. But I would also argue, maybe Pat Nolan gets even more of the vote because, again, this is a guy that just came into a team that is absolutely in a mess in their first 3 seasons, and in just a single season we might have just seen one of the biggest turnaround an MLS team has had. Got this team to stop that losing culture and got this team to make it to the playoffs and even winning a playoff game. So there's no doubt that if this team is going to make a deep run in the playoffs, I think Pat Nolan has to be considered to win Coach of the Year. After again, it's just incredible the fact that he wasn't even considered to be the top 3, considered the job that he done for FC Cincinnati last year. But there you have it. That is pretty much it for the season preview of FC Cincinnati. If you're a Cincinnati fan, let me know in the comments below what do you think is the strength and weakness, and also the 3 big question that you have in terms of this team heading into this upcoming season. Again, this is really the first season where I think this team actually had some optimism and maybe had a little bit of an expectation that they want to continue to get this team to be a regular contender in the Eastern Conference, or at least a regular playoff contender that is in the Eastern Conference. But let me know in the comments below. But until then, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.